There's a very consequential election in the United States, and Prime Minister Modi will be fighting to win a third term. What's your reading, Fareed, of Prime Minister Modi's re-election prospects and all that's playing out in India at the moment?
Look, they're very bright. Objectively, Modi is in a commanding position. I think he probably is in the most commanding position in all these elections you're talking about around the world. Modi is probably in the most commanding position. Why? India is doing well. Some of that is Modi and his policies, and you have to give him credit for that. Some of it is 20 years of reforms that have created a certain momentum that is now unstoppable. And I do think poor Manmohan Singh deserves a lot more credit for all that than he gets. Some of it is the BJP's organization is just much, much better than the opposition. The fundraising, they are, maybe 100 times more money than their opponents in some parts of the country. And Modi is very charismatic. He has, again, this is part of this new phenomenon. Modi has his pulse on a certain kind of Indian in a way that very few people have in India. He comes from outside the elite. He may be the first real non-elitist Indian Prime Minister. If you think of the Nehru, Gandhi, even Narasimha Rao, even Manmohan Singh, they all, by education, if not birth, came out of a certain kind of elite background. He doesn't. And there is a sense in which the Aam Aadmi relates to him. And he understands Hindu pride, the ordinary Hindu's pride in a way. I wish he would use it in a more positive way, not to divide people, but to bring everyone up. But there's no question that he has tapped into something.
But Prime Minister Modi seems to be defying a global trend against anti-incumbency. World over, whether it is Biden, Macron, Trudeau in Canada, they're all facing massive anti-incumbency. He seems to be the one outlier in a country as complex as India.
Because he has managed to be both an incumbent and part of the establishment, and yet the populist outsider. That's what I mean by the tapping into this Hindu pride. He is able to tap into the pride of a large part of India that felt that, we're not Bombay Walas, we're not Delhi Walas, we didn't go to these fancy universities, but our time has come. And we don't speak a Hindustani with English words thrown in. We speak, Kattar Hindi, we may even speak dialects, Brijbhashan, whatever. That India, Modi gets. And so he's simultaneously able to be the outsider and the insider. Erdogan in Turkey is the closest example. Orban in Hungary. There are a few of these characters. And Modi is, I think, probably the leading one among them.
Now, there's a massive Pran Pratishtha happening at Ayodhya on the 22nd of January, and all of India is agog. And I'm quite shocked by the number of young people who suddenly seem to be discovering a level of religiosity which they didn't seem to demonstrate previously. From your perch, what do you make of this? Ram Bhajans are flying off Spotify, of Ghana, Apple Music. It's the hottest genre of music in India at this moment.
Look, India has always been a traditional society. If you look at the kind of, Pew surveys of world values, it's a traditional society, it's a religious society. It's in many ways still remains a very patriarchal society. Women's participation in the labor force in India is lower than in Saudi Arabia. What is that about? That's about a very traditional home structure. So it doesn't surprise me at some level. What has happened is that this has been encouraged, politicized, even weaponized. Some of the encouragement, some of the celebration is great. It's one wonderful thing that people should take greater pride in their religion, in their culture, in their... Again, as I always say, to me, the task of leadership is to find a way for people to take pride in themselves without putting other people down, without saying, that this is, my pride comes at your fall, at your expense. And that I fear the BJP does not do. The BJP, clearly it is part of a political project to make Indian Muslims feel like second-class citizens. That's unfortunate because I think the greatness of Hinduism has always been its incredible pluralism and tolerance. I mean, Hinduism is the most tolerant religion in the world. You can be vegetarian or non-vegetarian. You can believe in one God or three gods or 100. You can, there's so many of these passages in the Rig Veda which are extraordinary in their generosity of spirit, and that I fear is missing. So while I'm delighted, and I feel a certain Indian pride in seeing that that kind of outpouring of positive sentiment. I just hope it can be channeled in the direction of unifying the country rather than dividing
You
it.
mentioned Erdogan in Turkey. He too was up against a combined opposition, 6 parties coming together. They fell short. They made it a tighter contest, but fell short by about 6% votes. In a global context, what's your sense of the prospects of the India alliance as parties like the Trinamool, the Samajwadi Party, the Congress all try and come together? This experiment hasn't really succeeded against a towering personality like a Prime Minister Modi in other countries where it's been attempted.
So it's very hard. You need another towering personality. The biggest problem for Turkey was they didn't have... Erdogan is a huge, larger-than-life figure, and they had nobody like that. So the question is, does the opposition have somebody like that? And then the second part is, are they willing to be truly, brutally strategic? Are they willing to put up in every constituency in India one BJP candidate versus one opposition candidate? So the opposition would have to combine around the strongest person in that particular constituency, regardless of what that meant for their party. That's the smart thing to do. Will they do that? I don't know. But look, the math, as you know, the mathematics are, last time around, the BJP won 38% of the vote and got 62% of the seats. Why? Because the opposition was divided. If you confronted the country with one opposition candidate versus one BJP candidate and the strongest opposition candidate, I think they would have a very, very good shot at a much better showing.
What does a potential third term for Prime Minister Modi look like from your lens? Where do you see the third term of the BJP government taking India?
So I hope for three things, really. One is the solidifying of India's reforms. There are still areas where India is still a very difficult place to do business by global standards. It's very protectionist. Labor laws are very tough. Land acquisition is tough. Modi tried to do something about some of those things. Maybe the third term will allow him to just create, and it's really the people need to understand, when you talk about reforms like this, it's all to help the average person. Because the big conglomerates and the big houses, they love having these complicated regulations and tariffs. It protects them from foreign competition. It protects them from domestic competition. They can manipulate the system. The more you open the economy up, the more the average person benefits, the more the small entrepreneur benefits. So one thing would be to really try and create more of a level playing field in the Indian economy. The second is solidify the alliance with the United States. I strongly believe that it is in India's strategic interest not to be sitting on the fence, not to be playing footsie with the Russians. India would benefit dramatically by having a generational alliance with America. It doesn't have to be formal. I don't mean that. What I mean is a generational level of commitment that there's going to be cooperation, dialogue, cross-fertilization of economics, trade, technology, education. Remember,
But that's already happening, isn't it?
it's not happening. I mean, you take something like education. I was on the Yale board, so I know this a little bit. We tried desperately to do more in India. It's incredibly hard. India has so many backward colonial, post-colonial regulations that are so suspicious of foreign universities, so suspicious of foreign NGOs. What's happening, honestly, Rahul, is at a chattering class level, there's a lot of people, CEOs going back and forth, praising each other. What needs to happen is actual institutionalized people-to-people exchanges. Tariffs are still very high. India is the most protectionist large economy in the world. So all that needs to change. And then finally, I would hope he would unify the country. I think he has a real chance to go down. Look, he has a chance to go down as the most important Indian Prime Minister since Nehru. I think it would be hard for him to overtake Nehru because Nehru was India's first Prime Minister. And that gives him a kind of unique status as the man who establish modern India and particularly modern Indian democracy. But he has the chance to leave a very powerful legacy.
But in a global context, if you go back in time as well, where does Modi stand in the pantheon of global leaders going back in history?
So Modi has to, that's where I think that Modi so far has played his hand well. He's shrewd, he manages to, to take advantage of situations well, he gets on well with other leaders. But what is his vision for India? Where does he want India to go? Where does he want it to be? And what I'm saying is I think India's destiny lies in being at the forefront of the democratic world, of the world of order, not disorder, of the world of a rules-based international system, of open societies, open politics, open economics. That is where, there needs to be a greater push in that direction. It can't just be that you play your hand well, that that doesn't put you in a pantheon. The people who are in the pantheon have vision.